Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm Handyman Graham, and today I'm making an extendable dresser desk combo. If you haven't already, please like and subscribe. For this project, Alexandra's tasked me with combining a desk and a dresser for Elisha. Elisha doesn't have a ton of room to work with. She's in a studio apartment. Ideally, you'd have just like a standalone desk and a standalone dresser, but we don't have that space to work with here. So we're gonna try to combine these two things together, have something that, is functional, practical. She can kind of like extend it when she needs to use a desk and kind of tuck it away when not in use. There's a ton of products like this online. Alexandra sent me some awesome inspo photos like this, bing, or this, bing. So first things first, I gotta put some ideas on paper. I'm thinking, we're gonna source this old Facebook Marketplace dresser. And for the desktop, I'm probably gonna make something from scratch because this is gonna be such a custom piece. And I'll probably do like a waterfall mitered edge to it so that the wood grain flows from the top to the side. Probably put some wheels on the bottom so it can roll and slide easily on the dresser top. And I'm gonna have to figure out like a track system for the desktop to slide onto the dresser. So first things first, I have to gather all of the materials. So I found a pretty rundown dresser off of Facebook Marketplace for 60 bucks. We're gonna be painting this, flipping it, so the condition of the dresser isn't really my biggest priority. So now I can go to the lumber yard and source the lumber. For this desktop, I wanted to use some cherry. Cherry is like a warm honey-toned wood with like some reddish undertones to it. It's just like a color tone that really matches with the rest of the colors in this makeover. If I were to use like a walnut, like a dark chocolate color, it probably wouldn't match the vibe here. So while we're gonna be painting this dresser like a darker color, we kind of wanted the wood tone to be a contrasting lighter color. So now that we have all the materials, it's time to start the desktop. As you know, I love running and going to the gym, not just for the physical health benefits, but for the mental health benefits as well. Whether it's a problem I'm having at work with a DIY project or a disagreement I'm having with a friend, taking the time to introspectively work through a problem is so essential for me to get through my day. However, sometimes there's just some things I can't work out on my own. Just like with a DIY project, sometimes I don't have all the tools in the toolbox in order to complete the job, and that's the same with mental health as well. And that's why I'm happy BetterHelp is the sponsor for today's video. I find that a therapist helps supply me with the tools that allow me to work through problems I'm unable to work through on my own. In the past, I've held off on going to see a therapist because I just found the whole process just way too burdensome to not only go to the actual therapist's office, but to actually find a therapist that understands what's going on. BetterHelp makes starting therapy so much easier because you can do it virtually on your phone or computer. You can also easily switch therapists if you don't feel it's the right fit. With over 7,000 reviews and a 4.3 rating on Trustpilot, BetterHelp is a platform you can trust. Click the link in the description or go to betterhelp.com/handymangraham to get 10% off your first month of therapy. Hey guys, it's Monday morning and I'm back in the workshop. I got the wood and the dresser right here. So I'm gonna probably split this project up into two parts because it's gonna take the longest to do. I'm gonna make the sliding wooden desktop first. In between, I can kind of jump into the dresser, start cleaning it up, maybe sanding it down, filling some scratches or dents or whatever. This thing's pretty filthy. It looks like it's been out in the rain for a couple days. It is in really rough shape, which is great because it's gonna make this transformation so much better. If I didn't buy this dresser, I don't think anybody else would have, so we're kind of saving it from the landfill, I think. First things first is I gotta start, straightening and flattening and cutting these pieces of wood together. So I'm using my thickness planer to bring all the boards down to the exact same thickness so that when I glue them up, they're all gonna be quite uniform and straight. Generally, you'd wanna use like a jig with your thickness planer to make sure that they're all nice and straight. But at the lumberyard, I was extra cautious, choosing the pieces of wood. I got the straightest pieces possible so I could kind of skip this step altogether. Because I'm making a waterfall edge, I'm not cutting up these boards into smaller pieces to work with. The rule of thumb for using a joiner is that the piece of wood can't be twice as long as the outfeed table, and I'm working with like 6-foot long pieces of wood here. So instead, I'm using a table saw jig and some clamps, and what that's gonna do is it's gonna clamp that piece of wood onto the table saw jig, and when I run it through my table saw, it's gonna make a perfectly straight line all the way down. And next, I'm removing it from the clamps, and I'm just running the board through the table saw without the jig, and what that's doing is just giving 2 perfectly straight edges. This is just a great hack if you just have a table saw at home to straighten boards for tabletops. I'm using my biscuit joiner every 6 inches. The biscuits just prevent the boards from shifting around as you're gluing. Like, the glue is really slippery, and so when you put a biscuit in between the 2 pieces of wood, it just prevents it from like shifting around. So I'm clamping everything together, and just to make sure like the boards don't like cup or like warp from the clamping pressure, I'm just putting some boards perpendicular to the length. When I clamp them together, it just keeps the boards nice and straight, prevents them from warping under the clamping pressure. Holy, that was a really tricky glue up. No blisters this time, but it's just really long, so I had to use so many clamps. You know, I was looking at my level, I just put my level on the boards, and it was a little wonky, but I managed to glue it all together, and it should turn out pretty good. So that's that for today. Gonna let this dry overnight, and I come in the morning, gonna remove the clamps, and then I can start sanding it, cutting it, routing it, gluing it, and then we should probably be in a good spot tomorrow to maybe even do the miter cut. So it's very exciting. A lot of work that we have to do before then, but it's a great place to stop, and I will see you guys in the morning. So have a good sleep, bye. Now that the wood glue is dried overnight, I'm removing all the clamps, inspecting this tabletop for the first time, and I'm so happy with it. Look at this piece of wood. It's almost as tall as me. That's crazy. This is the biggest piece of wood I've ever glued together. I'm really happy with it. It looks nice and straight. I guess I've done this a couple times now, but it is like pretty stressful to glue together boards and have them be like perfectly flat and I don't know, the same thickness and all that sort of stuff, but I'm getting better at it. I'm just gonna sand this down with the belt sander. Then I'm gonna get my track saw and I'm gonna cut some 45s with the track saw maybe. Then yeah, I can probably glue it all together. Once that's dry, I can add some splines just for some additional support. It's all coming together pretty quickly, even though I just started, so. Cue the time lapse of sanding, please. I'm just removing any dried wood glue and sanding down the surface using a 50 grit belt sander just to see what we're working with here. And just to finally clean it up before cutting this down to size, I'm using 60 grit and 80 grit sandpaper. Wow, that was a ton of sanding. Cherry is like really hard, and so it takes a lot more effort to sand. But I got it from 50 grit belt sander, 60 grit orbital sander, 80 grit orbital sander, and I sanded the 2 faces and the 2 edges. Now I'm just going to go in with my router, and I'm gonna just put like a decorative edge on the top and on the bottom faces, and then I can get going on cutting this in half. So I'm just gonna grab my router. Because I'm gonna be cutting this board in half and gluing them together in an L shape, any sort of like profiling I'm doing with my router, I wanna do while it's all in one length still, so that when I glue it together, it's all nice and uniform. So I'm going in with a chamfer bit to slightly angle the underside of the desktop. And for the top side, I'm rounding it using a round over bit. So I'm just squaring up the ends of this panel with my track saw, just so I have like some nice 90-degree edges to work with here. I'm gonna have to cut down the ends later on so that we can really fine tune this desktop to the dresser, but we'll worry about that later. Okay, the board is looking actually very nice. I'm really happy with it. There's some live edge going on here. Even on this end, there's some there's some live edge exposed. What I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna take some I got some cherry cutouts here. I'm just gonna kind of lay it over, and I'm gonna trace this out, and then I'm gonna sit this down in there and just create some nice little inlays. I just have to try to match the grain. I'm not too worried about it. It's like anything is gonna look better than this live edge here. If you're unhappy with the way a piece of wood looks, if there's a big knot or hole or crack or scratch or whatever, it's that piece of wood is not garbage. You can actually save it by putting little bow tie inlays if it's cracked, or little square patches. It kind of gives it this fun bohemian, I don't know what you call it, artisanal vibe to it. So I got those inlays put in there, clamped, glued, and I sanded them down. I didn't show it on camera because I don't know why. But anyways, no, all the inlays are done. Here's one here, and I just put a little square here and here. It's kind of cool. It looks, I'm into it. I'm leaving a little bit of live edge on the very end. This is gonna go on the back side as well, so this is never gonna see the light of day. The next step is I'm gonna cut the waterfall edge with my track saw. This has been quite the doozy today, but seeing where this board started at this morning, covered in clamps and stuff, to where it is now is night and day. So very happy with the results so far. Wish me luck trying to cut a perfect 45 with my dinky track saw. I'm gonna be cutting a triangular piece of wood out of the tabletop using my track saw at a 45-degree angle. I had to do a couple passes with my track saw in order to get that perfect 45-degree cut. It's a little bit of a pain in the butt, so I cut it a couple times, but I'm still able to match that grain up. I'm taking that triangular piece of wood that I cut out from the tabletop, and I'm cutting it with my miter saw into 8 pieces. So I'm gluing 4 of those pieces onto the top edge, 4 of the pieces onto the side edge with some CA glue. So I have a parallel face that I can apply clamps to, and I'm gonna be able to clamp those pieces of wood together while the wood glue dries. In addition to those clamping surfaces, I'm applying some biscuits so that when I do clamp everything together, it doesn't shift around, just like when we glued up all those parallel boards together. Hello, it's the next morning. This has been quite the process. I'm a little too afraid to hammer these clamp surfaces off. I'm worried that it's gonna tear out some of the wood, maybe crack the wood. So instead, I've already kind of tested it out here, I'm sorry. I'm gonna take my planer, my electric planer, and I'm just gonna plane these down to as close to the surface as possible, and then just go in with my sander to remove the rest of the material. And I think this is just gonna be a lot safer than kind of busting these off and risking, oh, okay, well, you know what? It tore out a little bit of the wood, so I'm not gonna risk it. I'm just going to, yeah, not gonna risk it. I'm just gonna take my planer, shave them down. Never force a glued piece of wood off with a hammer or something, because it's gonna rip all those wood fibers out with it. So instead, I have this electric planer, and so I'm just planing those blocks away and just bringing them down to an amount of wood where I can just get rid of it with my electric sander. Okay, it looks so good. It's nice and clean again. What I need to address now is this really nasty mitered edge. The track saw I have is not really intended for finer work. My neighbor has a really good track saw, and I and I refused to ask them for some reason, and now I'm kind of paying the price a little bit, but that's okay, because this is a great learning experience. So I have this really big mitered edge. There's a bit of a gap at the top of the mitered edge, and I just need to close that. And there's a little trick that I can teach you guys on how to close these mitered edges and make it look more professional. I'm gonna wet that edge. I'm gonna get that wood nice and soft with water. I'm gonna fill that crack with some wood glue, and then using a rounded blunt object, I'm just gonna press that edge together. And the glue, as the glue dries, is gonna hold it together, and it's gonna close that seam, and it's gonna look really nice. And I'm gonna sand it down, and it's gonna look like it was professionally cut. Okay, so the mitered edge still isn't completely dry, but I have to keep going. So rather than like cleaning up that edge, I'm going to allow it to dry as I do the splines in the miter cut. So the splines are just gonna add additional strength to this miter, because there's gonna be like, you know, forces acting on it. Like there's gonna be like probably like a sewing machine on there. She's gonna be pulling it open and closed. A lot of weight pressed on there. It also add like a little decorative flair, which will be kind of cool. Yeah, I'll just show you guys how I'm gonna make it. I have never made one of these before, but it should work. A mitered edge isn't all that strong on its own, so I'm adding some splines to this desktop. You'll notice splines like in picture frames and mirror frames and anything that kind of has like these 90-degree mitered edges to it. The spline is just kind of like a bracket that's built into the mitered cut. For the actual spline itself, I'm using a hard toasted maple wood. So I'm gluing and hammering the splines in place and just cleaning up the extra wood with my flush cut trim saw. Now that the splines have been cut, the glue still needs a little bit of time to dry. But now it's time to figure out the wheel situation. And I have these little wheels. I'll probably like remove this bracket, remove the pin from the wheel. And I think I'm just gonna take a bolt, use that kind of as an axle. And then I just have to like minimally carve out the bottom for this wheel to fall into place. And then I could just like secure the bolt in place with like a screw or a nail or some glue, maybe some epoxy. I haven't really figured it out yet, but I think this is the best case scenario, and I'm gonna start carving a little notch. So I'm just writing out some little notches on the vertical piece that's gonna kind of act as the legs. And I'm just putting 2 little notches so I can slip a little wheel into that notch, have that desktop sit as close to the floor as possible to conceal these wheels, because I want it to look nice and clean. Nice, wheels work. Can check that off the list. Next thing I gotta do is the track system. And I've got this keyhole router bit. It is quite small, but I'm thinking I'm gonna route out a larger channel so that a larger piece of wood can act as the track, so that I can secure it to the top of the dresser rather than this little tiny dinky thingy. So I just need something with a lip and we'll be good. This tiny keyhole router bit cuts out a T-shaped channel in the wood, and in order to make it larger, I'm using a 4-foot yellow level on one side and a piece of MDF here on the other to act kind of like as a guide for the router, so I can cut out more material for the track slides to slide in and out of. I'm routing 3 equally spaced T-shaped channels under the desktop, and it's cutting out a lot of material and it's making quite a mess here, so I just have to vacuum up as I go. For the track slides, I'm cutting out some T-shaped pieces of oak from my table saw that will hopefully slide freely within the track. I'm marking and cutting them so that they're the perfect size for the track, taking away material a little bit at a time so that they're the perfect fit. I have to make sure they're gonna do the same once they're attached to the top of the dresser, so I'm just adding some temporary screws and crossing my fingers that this is actually gonna work. Yeah, okay, it's a little tight here, and yeah, I probably didn't need to put this desktop all the way in. It's a little overkill. But yeah, just like I thought, the track slides are binding within the track. And I knew 3 tracks was gonna be a little bit overkill, so I'm probably just gonna get rid of the middle track, and hopefully that will allow it to slide a lot easier. There's gonna be a change of plan. Just took me like 25 minutes to hammer that frickin' desk out of place. The dresser itself is like super flimsy. It's just like, it's flexing too much and it's causing the brackets to bind. We want this thing to be able to slide in and out really easily. So what I'm thinking is, regardless of what I do with this track, I think I should add some wheels at the very end of the tabletop, and that's just gonna give it some support for when it's like folded in completely, because if the brackets are just here at the end, the wheels are down here, then there's nothing supporting it over here, and I feel like that's why it's kind of binding so much, is because there's just weight that's pressing down on those brackets. I just routed a little channel for this wheel, and I'm gonna see how this depth works, and if I need to go deeper, then I just have to route a little bit more. Wow. I can't believe it works so easily. Incredible. Okay, I got that sorted out. I'm gonna clean up the single wheel router area. I might put like a stopper, because it shouldn't really be extended past this point. Before I can sand this all down, I'm gonna put a handle on it. I got 2 pieces of cherry right here. I'm gonna take these over to the lathe and I'm gonna turn them into dowels, because I'm gonna put a handle here for sure. Okay, now that the desktop is pretty well finished, I mean, I still have to sand it, seal it, clean it up. Still have to create like a little bumper for it so she can't pull it all the way out. But regardless, it's like 99% done, which is great. So now I'm gonna move on to the dresser. The first thing I gotta do before I start cleaning it up and stuff is I gotta plug the old handle holes with some dowel, so I can sand that down, because I'm just gonna be putting on knobs rather than pulls. So the first thing I'm gonna do is remove the old handles. And fill in the holes with some wood glue and dowels. This is a trick that I've done so many times. It's just like so much more durable than wood filler. So I'm gluing them in place, and I'm just trimming away the excess with my flush cut trim saw. I'm filling in any cracks with some wood filler and priming the whole dresser with some shellac-based primer. I'm using 3 coats of Deep River in a semi-gloss finish by Benjamin Moore in their Advanced line. I love the Advanced line. It's almost like an enamel paint, so it's just like great to work with for cabinets, doors, trim, dressers. It's just an easy paint to work with, quick drying time, and easy cleanup. Okay, good morning. It's Friday morning and it's the last day I have to work on this dresser, but we've made a lot of good progress yesterday. I was here a little bit late trying to get the painting done. You notice the dresser's not on the work table right now? It's because I just put it back together, and are you ready to have your mind blown? Doosh, doosh. Okay, ready? Slow, dramatic, zoom. Wow, beautiful. How nice does that look? I did put a piece of wood on the back of the dresser just to keep like the sides from like moving around and stuff, because I found the dresser was quite wobbly. I am going away next week, so I'm not gonna be here until the day that we go to the makeover. I'm gonna have Nolan just apply some satin lacquer to the top of the dresser. I'm just gonna make it a little bit more durable. I'll probably just do the top of the dresser, nothing more, because I don't want to affect the quality of this paint, because it is looking really nice. So I'm gonna leave that for Nolan to do. In the meantime, I'm gonna jump back onto the desktop. I'm gonna sand it down, clean it up, get it all nice and finished, and then I'm gonna be able to apply oil. And that should be it for this DIY project. So enjoy more sanding content, I guess. I don't know. If you're tired of it, you can always fast forward. Yay, I'm done all the sanding, and now I get to apply the finish. And I'm gonna use this hardwood floor finish that I use for all my fancy wood projects. It just makes the wood just like super vibrant, just enhances the color. I'm gonna apply this to every single surface. If there's any like unsealed surfaces, then like moisture in the air tends to like absorb through that unsealed part and it can make the wood warp. And I need this desktop to maintain as straight and flat as possible over the years. Okay, now it's time to install an Elisha space. Okay, it's installation time. So we just have to reassemble all the wheels and the track back on the dresser, and we can get to installing the desk onto the dresser. This has these dinky little wheels. These are brackets, the IKEA brackets.
For you?
Yeah. And then one more wheel this end. Now I'm adding the handle and I need to tighten the brackets on the back. There. Okay, we just have to put the track on now. I put a little washer. So just need it to be lifted up a bit. Okay, so I'm just gonna slide this into place and then we're almost done. Whoa. Whoa. Nice. Looks good. I just have to put these little stoppers in. I'm just worried that Elisha is gonna like pull it too far and then the thing's gonna crash down on the floor and break and stuff. So just for safety's sake, I just used some old piece of track. It's the same shape as the track itself. And I made these little MDF wedges. So it's just gonna be wedged into place and just put it against the track. Boom. And I'm just gonna do one for the other side. Boom. The wedge is just holding that little block in place. So in the event that she does pull it out too far, it just has a little stopping point. And then the last thing we have to do is just put on knobs, but Alexandra loves to put knobs on, so I'm gonna leave that for her to do. Be sure to jump over to Alexandra's channel to see how it all turns out and to see her reaction. Now it's time for that part of the video where I talk about what I learned and what I could do differently. I think this desk dresser combo thing turned out so well. However, there's probably some more time-saving things I could have done. Like perhaps maybe I should have avoided adding those inlays into the underside of the desktop, which no one is ever gonna see. I kind of just got a little bit out of control there. And another thing is like, I should have just sucked up my pride and asked my neighbor for his Festool track saw. And I think my tip for you guys is don't be afraid to ask to borrow tools, because it's like just a more sustainable, more realistic way of getting these projects done without breaking the bank. People are always looking for space-saving solutions for their small spaces. And I think this is just like a really fun and creative solution to that. Just the contrast of found material and custom build that is just a beautiful combination. So you may notice that something is missing from the workshop in today's video. Unfortunately, the espresso machine is gone. So long story short, the espresso machine was my old landlord's espresso machine from a cafe she used to run. I took the espresso machine in, I fixed it up, I kept it running so that in the event that she did want to sell it, she could, and that time has come. So if you run a coffee roastery or whatever and you want to send me some equipment and some coffee, feel free. So let me know what you think about the combo desk and dresser in the comments, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching. Bye.